world's worst selfie taker. It's on that side. Look at
I'll
that.
move
There's
a
a
little
green. I
closer.
got a new phone. There's a green light.
Oh,
It's like a
man.
tally light. Who knew? Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. This is Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons, joined today by one of our newest reporters here at 14 News, Leslie Chapman. Thanks for coming on, Leslie.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, it's, we keep talking about doing this, and I'm trying to get to all the new ones. And we have so many new ones. It's like, I got to work
Yes.
all these in. So I'm glad you could squeeze me into your schedule. We're going to get to what you're working on in a minute. But for our listeners and our viewers here, tell us a little bit about Leslie Chapman. So how did you get to Evansville, Indiana here, the garden spot of the Midwest?
Oh, man. Well, I'm from the Garden State of New Jersey. That's where I'm originally
That's right.
from.
I saw the license plate on your
yes,
car.
and
right?
every time I see a New Jersey license plate, I send it to my boyfriend because he's like, I never see New Jersey license plates here. I see them all the time. But yeah, originally from New Jersey. Well, actually, I was born in Germany. My father was in the Army, so I was born over there and then moved to New Jersey, spent most of my life there. And then I went to Arizona State for college, so I've been living there for the last 4 years and then ended up here in Evansville, Indiana. They found me.
Yeah, let's go back to Germany a minute. So I guess you speak German.
Well, I used to be fluent. And when we moved back to the States, my sister and I really did not continue to speak it because it was our second language.
Well, sure.
And my parents always tried to make us keep speaking it. My grandmother had a neighbor that spoke German, but I was 4 years old. I didn't want to go hang out with, her elderly neighbor.
German speakers here on the west side. You'll have plenty of those.
I know. I
Germania,
really should have kept doing it, but
Yeah.
I lost it, and I went to a small high school, so they only offered Spanish and French, so I took French. And in college, I tried to take German, and it was not going for me. I was not good at it, so I pivoted to American Sign Language instead, which even that. Not fluent in that either.
Oh my gosh! So I didn't know you were multilingual. Well, this
I
could
think
come in
that's a
handy.
stretch.
Yeah. So what brought you then from Germany over college? I guess, or was your father transferred, or what happened?
Yeah. So we, my mom is originally from New Jersey, and so we ended up just moving back over there to be with family.
Yeah.
And my father, I think he went to Virginia after that. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we've got a few military bases here in the U.S. You don't have to go clear overseas to do that. So then you go clear out to Arizona State. I guess you're in the Walter Cronkite School out there.
That's exactly where I went.
Okay. And so then you've hopped around, but Evansville seems like an unlikely landing spot. So how'd you find about us? How did we find out about you?
Yeah, definitely. It was very interesting because when I was looking for jobs as I was approaching graduation, I was very sure that I either wanted to go back to the East Coast or maybe parts of Texas. My grandpa lives outside of Houston, so it was very important for me to be close to family. And so I did a lot of research as I was going into applying for jobs, and I made our parent company, Gray. They have a talent pool, so I created a profile on that. I had a good relationship with one of the recruiters for Gray Media, and they found me here. Actually, our assistant news director, I found out, is the one who found me.
Yeah.
And they reached out to me, I think at the beginning of the year, and I was like, Evansville, Indiana. Like that's further from home than I
Yeah, you can't
want
get
to
much
be.
farther from all your people than
Yeah,
right here.
I was
Well,
like,
Arizona,
I
yeah.
wanted like 10-hour drive or less. I was like, this is a little more than that. So I wasn't super sure, but I was like, I'll talk to them. Like I was really nervous about not graduating with the job because I had seen some of my classmates not. And so I had the conversation and I liked everything that they said, aside from where it was. And again, it was just because it was further from my family. But the more I talked to them and the more I talked to some people that work here at the station, I really liked it. And I think the thing that actually really solidified me wanting to come here and work for 14 News, one of our previous reporters, Haley Kirby, told me about this very big tornado that had happened here years ago, the December 10th tornado.
2010,
And she
December
told
10th.
me that there was a special that was done. I could easily look it up. And so I watched that special. And that's when I was introduced to you, Jeff. And I was like, I noticed how much you could tell that the station cares about the communities we serve and how much the communities we serve care about us. And so I was very loyal to the station I watched growing up in South Jersey. And so I knew that this felt like that, at least from an outside perspective. And I knew this is where I needed to be. And so this is where I am.
And here you are.
Here
and
I am.
you know, we've had a string of talent that has come out of Arizona State. I was thinking of that. Joey Hardy was a producer here, and then he went to Phoenix, and I think he got out of the business. They're having kids.
Yeah, I
and
know
doing all
Joey,
that
actually.
stuff.
I
sure
interned at the station he used to work at.
Okay,
So
all right.
there.
And there were a couple others in there, I think. But so now you get here, and so now you got to do it for real, realsies, right? And you came back in, was it June?
In June, yes,
okay.
the beginning.
So, you know, a couple, 3 months go by, then you get your baptism by fire, literally, with this however many P's, B's, and T's there are, but the chemical fire in Newburgh a couple of weeks ago. So walk us through that day. I mean, you've done solid work up to that point from what I've seen on TV, but now this is big. I mean, it's huge. This could be one of the biggest stories you cover in your career.
Yeah.
So how'd that day start out? You roll out of bed, and then what?
You know, since I've moved to the Saturday shift, a lot of times I'm like, Saturdays are great. I just cover events and it's usually pretty easy. And then I go into my weekend and it's great. You know, Saturdays are very lax typically. And so I came into work. I knew I was going to Owensboro that day. So I was like, you know, I'll come in 9:30 and head out to Owensboro, do the things I need to do and come back here. And so I went to a couple of things over there. I was really excited about one. Special Olympics Kentucky was having their state softball tournament, and I was so excited to turn that as a package. I talked to so many amazing athletes. I was so excited about it. Yeah. And so I came back and I started working on some of those to put together. And we hear on the scanner that there is a fire in Newburgh, and they're like, we're probably going to have to send you once we have a location. You're going to end up going out there. And so I did.
What people may not realize, too, is in a newsroom, you've got scanners going all the time. It just clatter, constant clatter. And, you know, sometimes stuff gets kind of lost in the shuffle. Big fire, typically not, because fire, everybody's ears perk up and you hear it. But we hear a lot of fires. You know, there's some fire and you go and it's a dumpster. Or you go and it's, you know, somebody's leaves got out of control. This was a fire. I mean, there was no question about it. So now you're driving out there. And did you have any inkling how big it would be or how hazardous it would be?
I mean, we had at least one photo that was sent to us before I started heading in that direction. And as soon as I hopped onto the Lloyd on the west side of Evansville near the station, I could see the plume from this fire. And I knew it was in Newburgh. And so I was like, wow, this thing is probably pretty big, you know, but it was white smoke. I couldn't tell. I was like, is this actually the smoke or is it a cloud? I wasn't totally sure. And so as I got closer, I started to see less and less of it. I was like, oh, like this isn't that big. And when I actually got there and saw that plume and saw how many first responders there were, I knew that it was probably something. And as I continued to update the newsroom with what I was seeing and what was happening, you know, I was supposed to go see a movie with my boyfriend that night. And at
Not gonna happen.
No, at one point I called him and I was like, hey, you didn't buy those tickets yet, did you? And he's like, I did. Why? Like, I bought them for this time. Is that okay? And I was like, well, I don't think we're going to that. So I ended up working, I mean, it was crazy. And I ended up working a 13-hour shift that day because of that fire.
So did you stay on site the entire time? And how were you like getting information? Were you running around tracking people down? Were you, I mean, how do you know, because it's chaos. The first responders are in there. It's hazardous, you know, which is an added bonus. So how are you getting stuff to report?
Absolutely. Well, it was challenging because we couldn't get very close. There was a sheriff's deputy vehicle, and as I was walking up, I was the first station there, and he was like, "Don't go past my car," because it was a chemical fire.
Up, yes.
Exactly. And so I couldn't get super close. I couldn't get close enough to first responders to even ask them what was going on. Eventually, they knew we were there, and so they would come up to us and give us updates periodically, but we didn't get an update until probably at least 2 hours into being there. And the update we had gotten was information we already knew. Right. And then we got another update probably another hour or two later. And the only new thing we learned was where it was happening, was the name of the building, PBTT. Right. And yeah, I think I ended up being at that fire for hours. I mean, this fire burned for 12 hours.
Right, because you can't put water. It turns out, of course, as you know, it was magnesium, which you probably didn't know at the time. But you can't, if you put water on it, it goes berserk. And so they have to let it just kind of burn out, as you know. And yeah, it was like a fireworks display, and seeing the video. So how do you compartmentalize maybe fear? The whole thing could go up and take me with it. And yet the need to tell the story and alert people. This is a big thing. They had a shelter-in-place order that went out, and many other things. So what was your adrenaline fear ratio like?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely concerned to be out there and be relatively close to it, without a mask on, without any kind of protective equipment. We don't know what we're going into.
You don't travel with a gas mask all the time, huh?
I really should after that one. But, it was so important to be able to get this information out to people. This was a big deal. And I don't think at the time I necessarily realized how big it was really going to be. I mean, we're at the time that we're recording this, we're 2 weeks past, and we're still getting new information on this fire, and we're still covering this fire.
And now, of course, all the stuff starts to come out. The EPA had warned them, and the violations. I think you had like 900 pages of stuff on the news
that stack.
Yeah, really lively reading, after the day. But part of your job, and to try to distill it so our viewers and listeners, can just tell me what's going on, and you can say, well, they did this wrong, they did that wrong, there was this citation. So were you, I mean, this is a dumb question, but were you nervous at all? I mean, nothing really prepares you to cover a real big thing like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was really nervous because I wanted to make sure we were working with such limited information, and it was really important to me to get as much of that out as I could and to continue to update the newsroom. There was really only so much I could do at the time from the field, and so I was constantly calling the newsroom and texting people in the newsroom with updates on what was going on. But I was definitely nervous because I wanted to get it right. To only be here, I'm still really a baby in my career. I've only been here for about 3 months. So to cover something that I knew was going to be big, I felt a lot of pressure to get it right. And that pressure was probably all on my end, and
it's good pressure. You
but
want to get it right.
And I think that was really important. And just seeing how people are still talking about this fire, obviously it was important, and I hope that I did a good job reporting on it at that time. And, as we've continued to cover this, I hope that we have done a good job. And I think I feel happy with how I've handled it.
So other than the big fire, you talked about covering Special Olympics. They had a softball tournament in Owensboro. You must have some other stories that kind of stand out that you thought, oh, that was cool. I really like that. Or this is my thing. What's your thing? Like if you could just pick, walk in here and say, I want to do a story on this, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I really do love doing some human interest stories. I think some of my favorite ones that I have done since I've been here, there was one week that I was filling in on 14 News Sunrise, and I was doing back to school, and I just had such a blast being on the morning shift and doing live interviews and just seeing so many kids on their first day of school. It made me miss being in there and being an elementary schooler, and I think that was really fun. I think one of the first stories I did here too was very interesting. There was a clown that was breaking into cars and homes, or attempting to.
Oh, I remember that clown.
That was one of the first stories I did.
We sent you on that? You probably didn't sleep for a week after that.
It was crazy, but the next day they caught
some punk up in McCutcheonville, wasn't it? Yeah, okay.
And whether or not it was my reporting that helped them find who it was, that was a crazy story, especially as one of my first ones, and I think that was pretty memorable.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I remember it and thought, man, that's creepy. Having a clown break into your car and everything. So you've had a wide variety in such a short period of time of stories where you've had, the tearjerker, the inspirational stories, like at Special Olympics. You've had the weird, and then the dramatic and highly impactful kind of stories. So what's your ambition? Do you want to report and work your way to New York? Do you want to anchor? Where do you see yourself going with your career?
Yeah, it's so interesting because all through college, I always thought that I wanted to be an anchor. And while I still think that maybe down the line that's what I want to do, I think especially since starting here, I've really kind of fallen in love with reporting. In college, it was something that was really stressful for me, and I had a lot of anxiety surrounding it. You know, going into places by myself with a big camera and putting that camera in people's faces. It was scary. But I think here, just doing it every day, I've gotten so used to that. I do think I've always said that my goal is to end up back home reporting. It's going to take me some time to get there if I do that.
Which
that's Philadelphia.
Market are you Philadelphia?
Yes,
Okay.
it's crazy. It's very big,
one.
But it's been my dream. But I also told myself when I was moving here to Evansville, if I really liked it here, I wouldn't be opposed to staying here. So, again, we're only 3 months in, so we'll see where things go. But, I'm happy here, and it'll be interesting to see where my career takes me, for sure.
And there's something about reporting and being in the field that that's the only way you can really learn a market or an area that you're working in. And believe it or not, back a long time ago, late 80s, early 90s, I was a reporter too, and I would do the weather on the midday and then I did features, so human interest. But I learned every nook and cranny of the tri-state, even though I'd grown up here. I hadn't been to Philpott. I mean, why would I go there? And yet I went, and there were interesting people. And I think it really gave me an advantage then when I went to weather full time to know the area. And I've kind of gone back to that. It's so much easier to do stories now. You can do them on your phone. So I'm kind of doing those on the side, putting them on our midday show. But I really enjoy that because one thing about anchoring or being in here all the time, as I often am, you don't want to lose touch, with the folks out on the other end of the microphone. So that's been fun. But I'm glad that it's working out for you, and your folks, I guess, must be pleased. I know I ask all the young reporters this because their folks can watch them on the app or online or whatever. So you're getting hopefully positive encouragement.
Oh, absolutely. My stepdad, he watches every night at home.
There you go.
My mom, though, which is surprising, she's like, I just see if you post on Facebook. So I try, but it is a good encouragement to try to be really active on there to make sure I'm reposting what I'm doing and, just to keep, everybody informed of what I'm doing, but especially my mom.
I used to mail tapes home, tapes, like VHS tapes, and they get them a week later. Yeah. And you're looking at me like, what? What is that? But
I send links.
It's been a while. How do you balance social media with what we do here on broadcast and on streaming and so forth? Do you view it as competition? Do you view it as an extension of what we do? Is there a different kind of competition on social versus, on TV?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I try not to stress myself out with social media, especially when I'm posting, in a professional capacity. A lot of times if I think, I have time to snap a picture or a video of what I'm doing and preview that, I try to do it to bring viewers in and let them know, what I'm working on, what's going on. And I also love it because I love to be able to see what other people are doing, people that are here at the station, what some of my friends at the other stations in the market are doing. I think at the end of the day, we're all kind of teammates and we're all after the same common goal. And it's fun to be able to, cheer everybody else on and see what they're doing. I spend a lot of time probably scrolling through social media, just, mindlessly, but a lot too to see what's going on with other people and,
Sure.
and just what's happening. I don't post on TikTok very much, but I do love to scroll.
Yes, that seems to be the going answer. Everybody, we've had a few people here that have TikToked and done dances and whatever. And we had one anchor in the morning who was pretty proficient at it, But that's one I haven't dipped my toe into that. My daughter loves to pin us down, and it's so addictive. You start looking at this silly stuff, and so I thought, that's one I could probably do without, but. That's the great challenge is reaching people where they are.
Yes.
And if that's where they are, that's where you have to be. And we're glad that you decided you had to be here, at least for now, right?
Yeah.
So, local boyfriend, I don't want to get too personal here.
Oh, no, he is. He's lived here his whole life.
That's
so
a good
I've learned a
sign.
lot from him.
Good.
Coming in here, he's kind of my guide to the tri-state.
Your Sherpa, right? Your guide through the hills and dales of the tri-state. So that'll be good. Well, I'm happy you're settled in and, you're obviously doing well, and we look forward to hearing more from you here on 14 News.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
Leslie Chapman, thank you for being
Thanks
on
for
Inside
having
Look.
me.
I really enjoyed talking to you today. And if you'd like to hear more from, actually, you heard all from Leslie, but if you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, you can do that wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch Inside Look on the 14 News YouTube channel. And we have a sister podcast. You know about this,
Yes,
right? What's
yes.
the Trend? We have that on Friday mornings. That's with Casey Mason and Aaron Weeks. So be sure to check that one out. See if you can land a guest spot on that one.
I totally should.
That would be fun.
It would be so
I
fun.
had them on mine, hoping they're going to have me on theirs, but you know.
I'm sure you'll get your time.
No, I don't want to
come
horn
on
in.
now,
I
Jeff.
don't want to horn in on them. Anyway, thanks for joining us on Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons.